Hello and welcome to 73 and Sunny, the podcast about the journey of getting things just right. We talk to tech, sales, and marketing leaders about how they're growing, dialing in best practices, and getting closer to that sweet spot. Today, I am super excited to have Jason Rushforth join us. Jason has been a sales leader for the better part of 25 years and has led teams in some of the largest and well-known companies, including Salesforce, Oracle, and others. Jason, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Damien. It's so great to be here, and it's good to see your pretty face today.
Well, thank you. It's good to see you as well. So let's get personal first. It's graduation season, right? It's June. It's graduation season. I know that you just had one of your kids graduate from college. So congratulations on that. I have one, Michael, who is also graduating this year as well from college. So I just wanted to first get your thoughts on, hey, listen, now you're a father of a college grad, so you're a father of someone now that's going to be in the workplace. What are some of your thoughts in terms of this newer generation, in terms of career opportunities and what they're seeing and what they're faced with, as well as being able to afford and live and possibly buy a house, where you are? I know that you're in a nice area out in near Toronto, but what are your thoughts on on your daughter graduating and what's going to be ahead for her?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. And, I can say that I'm pretty blessed that my daughter had decided some time ago that she wanted to go into software. And she wanted to go into software sales, which means there's avenues and inroads that, her father can help her with to obtain her first job, and through the process, it was quite interesting. She went through an interview process with one of the biggest software companies on planet Earth. And at the end of it, they said, well, you just didn't have the experience. She's got a degree. She's bilingual. She offers good work ethic, but she didn't have software experience. She worked at a golf course to pay for her school, and I'm super proud of the fact that she made enough money that she could pay for her university. But then it begs the question, right? How do you get a job when you don't have experience, and how do you break into the market? And, I helped her focus on a couple of other opportunities. She ended up getting a job in the software business as a BDR, and today is her second day in the office, her first week on the job, and it's been spectacular for her. But a lot of my friends don't have the same experience. Depends on the profession, the career, the inroads that one would have. Because at the end of the day, the reality of the world we live in is your connections absolutely can help propel your career or not, right? And
right.
So that's something that, I was really lucky that she wanted to go into a profession that obviously I've spent 25 years of my life in. And, but she's worried. She's worried about the cost of housing. When you look at the massive increase, my first home was like $175,000, right? That same townhouse in the Greater Toronto area is selling for $1 million. So how do you come out of school, obtain a job, start paying for the things that you have to pay for as an adult, like your automobile, your insurance, your cell phone, and be able to save money to afford $1 million dwelling? And, it's definitely something that worries me as a father. I'm a father of 4, as I know you have several kids as well.
4 kids, yeah.
Yeah, I know. And I, it worries me. And, my twin daughters are just done their first year university in the United States. They play hockey. And my advice to them is, try and find a cheaper place to live than where we live today, because if you can find a job in lower cost areas, then you can, potentially afford to purchase a house and, take the traditional path that I think you and I took, Damien, when you meet your wife, you get married, you buy a house, you have your kids, and it's been like that for hundreds of years. And now we're sitting in a place where, our kid's going to live with us, in an apartment in the house, or how do you help them? We're probably forced to help them, but
Yeah.
definitely something that's on my mind.
I cannot agree more with that, because I'm literally in the exact same spot. So we have our son who's graduating with a communications degree as well. He has voiced that he wants to get into software as well. And it is about the connections, and it is all about, hey, if you're in, a big tech sector like Toronto, or, I'm in the Bay Area, to be able to have some of those connections, to be able to say, hey, I can help you get this job, is a huge piece of it. But at the same time, SDR or BDR salaries are not going to be able to keep up with a $1 million purchase, and it's probably tough with rents. So I don't know. I do think that it's the connections piece, the LinkedIn, and just having people brush up, and getting any of that type of experience is going to be super helpful to any of the kids. And you had said she has a good work ethic. And I know that there's been a lot of talk recently, I guess, from the older generations. You have the whole boomer versus, Gen Z or millennials or whatever it might be. It's like, oh, they're not working hard. And, there's the work ethic piece. But I know that you've worked with a lot of teams. You've managed a lot of teams, and, led teams of account executives, account managers, SDRs, BDRs. What's your experience with that? Is there a gap in terms of the work ethic, or in terms of like what everyone's now calling grit? Like, it's just, do they have the grit to pound the phone, to be able to get through a day of making 100 calls and getting no in 99% of them?
Right. It's kind of an interesting question, and timely, because one of the account executives at a software company who had tried to sell to me, but I thought was a fabulous salesperson, posted something today about the top commercial AE in his company. And he said, I was in San Francisco for 1 week working in the office. I came to work early every day, and this individual was there before me every day. I left the office late every day, and this individual was still at their desk grinding it out. And I think that characteristic still reigns true today, that the top performers are kind of always on and driving and have that grit. It is a gritty industry. There's no question about it in my mind, right? It's not a lap of luxury industry where you can, show up from 9 to 5. And I was just talking to my wife about this, and she's like, you can't ask our daughter to work 17, 18 hours a day. And I said, I'm not. I said, but if she works 1 hour more per day, that has a significant impact on the potential performance and outcomes in her job. And so, as a sales leader, you have to try and flush that out in the interview process, right? If that's what you're looking for, it's important that you ask the questions to understand that if that's a characteristic, and not every sales leader looks for that characteristic. I do, because I'm seeing hours, right? I'm starting work at 4:30 in the morning, and there's a quarter end, you're at it till midnight the same day. And so, in order to succeed, sometimes having that grit really makes an impact and a difference. And I think as a leader, you have to decide if that's an important characteristic, then you have to interview for that quality.
Mm-hmm. And so and you wrote this earlier in a LinkedIn post, that activity times effectiveness equals sales success, right? Mm-hmm. And so what you're saying is that doesn't matter if you're the more experienced generation or the new generation. If you're putting the hard work in, which a lot of people are doing, then you're going to win regardless of where or how you came in. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And you know, Damien, we worked at a company together many years ago, and we used to publish report cards internally. And that report card stands true to today in any company I've ever been to, where an individual contributor's activity, which can be measured and monitored, whether you're using Gong or whether you're using Salesforce or any other CRM product, and you can always equate top performers to high volume of activity. And when you talk to them, there's a high amount of exceptional interactions. And when you put those two things together, you get amazing outcomes and results. Those are performers that are not 1% above budget or plan or quota. They're 100%, 200%, 300% of their number. And, you know, a lot of people will subtract the activity part. They'll have great experience with how they provide value to their prospects, and they'll get to their number. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong. We want reps that get to and drive to their number. But when you put that extra effort in, that's when things get materially different.
Yeah. And I love the phrase, hard work beats talent. Like, you could have the most talented person and they can talk, very well, and they can convince people of different things. But if they're not a hard worker, they're not going to be that over producer, right? And it also kind of gets into everyone is always saying, oh, sales is a combination of art and science. And I'm of the opinion that the science or the math is at the top of the funnel. To your point, where, hey, it's science. It is just math. If you do the work at the top of the funnel, if you're making the volume of calls, the volume of emails, the volume of LinkedIn connections, and all the different things, texting and everything that you need to do at the top, that is the only way that you will get down to the bottom of the funnel, which is where really the art is, where now you have these polished, gems, and now you're going to say, okay, now I'm going to be able to get these as customers.
100%, Damien. You're 100% correct, right? You're not looking at the science. I mean, maybe as a sales leader, you're looking at the science of a total pipeline across different regions, across different segments that you sell to. But when you get down into the art is the fun part. The science is the absolute grind. I almost swore. The science is the grind. It's I know my ICP. I know the messaging. I know that in my territory, there's 3,000, 5,000, 8,000 or 2 accounts that I need to go after, and I've got to grind it out. And once you get them into play, the art is the fun part. That's where you can disrupt a deal. You can be creative. You can use a lot of different tools to really drive outcomes for the business. And, that's, I think, why we talk about the art of the possible, right? It's not the science of the possible, it's the art of the possible, right? Because, you want to be able to showcase how you can solve a customer or prospect's problems.
Yeah. And I think that might be what you were referring to when people are talking about having experience, because the experience, I don't think, is just on the number side, because anyone can make 100 calls a day. Yeah. Anyone can do that. But do they have the experience of getting 99 no's and 1 yes, and be able to have the art to be able to get that next call, or to get that proposal, or to get that piece? So it's an age-old question, and I agree. It's a gritty business. I can't believe our kids would want to join us in this.
It is gritty for sure.
Right. So you have a lot of experience in both the largest organizations and smaller organizations. So for our listeners, for either people who have a lot of experience or who are actually just joining the sales ranks more recently, what's some of your advice for someone who is looking at a new job, and they're looking at, well, I have some opportunities at large organizations, I have some opportunities at small organizations. What would you tell some of those people?
Oh, that's a loaded question with a lot of different answers to it. I did naturally advise my daughter to go after one of the biggest companies in the business. And I asked myself afterwards why. And I had a perception, and then I had to step back from my perception and think about reality. And my perception was, hey, you can get in early, you can work with them. They have a massive sales force, no pun intended. They have plethora of opportunities to grow your career and quickly pivot from BDR to sales rep because the size of that selling organization. Inside of that, and when I worked at this particular company, it's cutthroat. They had to set parameters so the BDRs were working 20 hours a day and shut off their access because they know it. You go back to the science part of the conversation, and I thought to myself after she interviewed there, I'm like, I think there's probably mid-sized companies that can give you great onboarding and enablement, which is critical in a new person joining an organization, that can set you up for success and still give you that career opportunity to grow into a software salesperson or an SC or into marketing, wherever you want to go. And so my typical advice is this, right? Big organizations, it's hard to get recognized, right? It's a small fish in a big pond, especially with entry-level positions, which means you have to go above and beyond and really stand out to get that recognition to move to the next level. And I know that's a generalism. There's people on this call that are probably saying I disagree with that, but that's the reality. If you're on a team of BDRs and there's 85 BDRs on your team, you have to be a top 3, top 4, top 5 performer against 85. Your competition pool is much stiffer. And then you have to hope you get a good territory, right? You end up with northern British Columbia where there's forestry companies and mining companies. You might not have the same outcomes as the person who has Manhattan, as an example. So I look at every opportunity as a unique and distinct opportunity for an individual to evaluate their ability. No matter what position you are in sales, you have to evaluate, can I succeed at this particular company? And that should formulate the questions you're asking through the interview process, right? You have to understand there's a path that can take you from BDR, SDR to sales rep and beyond, and understanding what that looks like in the organization you're about to join.
It's so funny you're saying northern British Columbia, because that was part of a territory that I had, I don't know, 20 years ago. And you have to find, it wasn't a forestry company, it was a shipping company, TK Shipping, and they were doing very well just in the oil trade. And so it was, you have to, even if you have to, polish some things that might not be as nice as maybe someone in who has the Manhattan territory. You just have to make it work, and I think that's again kind of where the grit comes in. Not everything is going to be handed to you. So, speaking of very large organizations, I just read a report where Ernst & Young was forecasting a 20% increase in M&A activity in 2024. And actually just in Q1 of this year, they saw a 36% increase in those M&A deal values. Yep. So I know that you've been through a bunch of these, with Eloqua and Oracle and different M&A activities. One, so two-part question. One, what do you make of the current state of M&A activity? And second, what advice do you have for professionals that might be going through one right now or anticipating one?
Yeah, two very different questions. 2023, the debt markets, the interest on debt was growing exceptionally. So that meant the deal values had to come down in order to facilitate or finance a deal, right? Private equity firms, which represent a significant portion of M&A transactions use debt financing as a particular vehicle to purchase companies. I think what's happened is the interest rates have softened. I talk to private equity firms every day, multiple times a week, and the general thesis is, hey, the markets are frothing, right? We're starting to see this improvement in M&A transactions, a lot of it driven by the interest rate on debt. And most of your viewers probably don't care about debt interest rates. The net of it is, yes, 2024 will be a very hot year for M&A acquisitions. I mean, I think we've all read the Alphabet or Google looking to purchase HubSpot. There was an Informatica / Salesforce conversation. SAP just bought WalkMe for a couple $2 billion. We're seeing more and more private equity transactions happening, and I think we're going to see a lot of M&A transactions occur throughout the course of this year and beyond. I think we went through the lull, and we're coming back up, and we're going to see a hot market, especially when I talk to the PE guys, and they're always saying, look, we think the markets are frothing, and that's usually a strong indication of a lot of acquisitions about to take place. Going through an acquisition, I've gone through lots. I've bought companies, I've sold companies. We exited CDC Software to Vista, private equity firm, rebranded it to Aptian. I left that job and went straight into Eloqua, thinking, no more M&A for a little bit, because in my tenure at CDC, we had bought something like 13 companies in the course of like 2 years, which was insanity. And then I joined Eloqua, and the first day on the job, my CEO says, we're going public. We go public, and the first quarter out, we have Oracle sniffing at us, who ended up buying us. And that was a real cultural shift. And I would sit and have coffee with the sales organization and say, you have to understand the culture is going to change, moving from a $100 million company to being part of one of the world's biggest software companies. But as a seller who carries a quota, opportunistically, can I make hay? Can I make some money in this new environment? As long as you learn to adopt these new tools, new process, new ways to get deals approved, new management, new expectations. But we went into Oracle as a $100 million business, and I left, 3 years into it, and we were a $750 million organization. And a lot of people made a lot of money along the way. And I think if you're opportunistic and you understand the situation your company's in and why the acquirer is buying your business, and then your CEO should be articulating high level what the thesis is. This particular private equity is buying us to put fuel to the fire. They're going to add money to marketing and to sales and to product. Okay, now we've got some more wind at our backs pushing us forward. Or in the case of Eloqua to Oracle, the acquisition was to start the Oracle Marketing Cloud. And the culture was the biggest shift for the Eloqua business. Eloqua, everyone had stickers, culture eats strategy for breakfast on their laptops. And you get into this big monolithic machine, and something as simple as a deal approval. And I know you worked at Oracle, right? You got to write, a novel to make sure that you can get the discounts and the concessions on the deal, and it doesn't take 20 minutes unless it's a $100 million transaction. The average rep is waiting 1, 2, 2.5, 3 weeks to get their deals approved. In a lot of cases, they get rejected. And so understanding that there's nuances and differences, and a lot of people ask me why I stayed, and I said, I'm opportunistic. I looked at this as an opportunity to go and take what was at the time, the market leader, according to Gartner and Forrester and AMR and all the analysts, and we were seeing amazing success, and walk it into accounts and sell $1 million plus transactions because of the power of the company that purchased us. And that's a really, really interesting place to be as a seller. So you put all your emotional things on one bucket and say, I don't want to be there because it doesn't have the culture. The office is changing. My tools are changing, blah, blah, blah. But in the other bucket, I have a quota. I have to get to my quota. I've got a good territory, and now I'm part of an organization that can propel me into driving not just to my quota, but well beyond my quota. And if you take the money aspect and the success factor, I would say to anybody in that situation, look at it from that perspective, learn and be a part of a really big company and decide after a year if that's the place you want to be.
Yeah. And I think the cultural change aspect is a huge part of it. And I think we're seeing another wave of change coming through with AI, and just maybe one or two big things that you're thinking AI will change for salespeople. What do you think will be happening in the next 6, 9, 12 months that is going to be either really good or really bad for salespeople in terms of AI?
So I think for B2B SaaS sellers, I don't think AI is going to displace their jobs and, be able to transact in understanding business problems and solving those problems with the solution. AI is a vital component to the future. And I think about, you get a new lead, a new opportunity that's coming. We talked about the science, and you get them at the early stage, and you think about the research that an individual has to put into understanding that business, what they've gone through, who they've bought, who they've sold, what's happening at the executive level. And AI can synthesize a lot of the research element of the job. You can use that AI to identify prospects quicker at the tippy top of the funnel, change your messaging to be more in line with their business. And then at an executive leadership level, my hope and prayer is that you can have AI tell you the predictability of your pipeline based on characteristics, demographic information about your prospects. Because the one thing that's tried, tested, and true in this business, Damien, is when you play outside your ICP, and your ICP is built over years of selling your software to different types of company. Early days, you're opportunistic, hitting everybody up and down. And then you get to the steady state of going, I know what my ICP is. And when we did analysis, but it took humans and a ton of work, our win rates were dismal outside of our ICP. And so being able to look at something as simple as, is this company in your ICP? Are they showing signals that they're interested in buying this technology? All this other information that we have to try and glue together to assess a pipeline. But when you're in a small company, it's probably easier, smaller pipeline. As a sales leader, you can go through and triage the entire pipe, the type of companies. But if I go back to my Oracle days, our pipeline was pages and pages and pages of deals, and you're relying on individuals and humans to extract what the value of the pipe is, instead of using technology that says, hey, this is the range. Like, wouldn't it be nice to know this is the range we predict this to be based on characteristics we understand of how you sell? And I think AI is going to play a vital component into doing that.
I think it already is. We're using tools internally that are doing that for us, to be able to give us not only the data, the firmographic or the demographic data around these, but also the activity. Hey, what is happening? Not only the activity from the customer side, but also from the seller side. Hey, are they saying the right things? Are they introducing pricing too early or too late? Are they talking about the value in the right way? And all of this is now being crunched on the AI side and saying, hey, listen, you got to be aware of this, or you're talking too much, which I often do. But it is all these things together, I think, is going to be super helpful in terms of B2B sellers and B2B and B2C sellers as well. So, you know, I know that we've been talking for a little bit. I have one last personal question for you. You are a traveler. Jason, you are always on the road. You're going flying all over the place. You're getting up at 4 a.m., as you said, and, you know, maybe flying to wherever. What's your favorite place to visit, both professionally and personally?
You know, and you're not going to love my answer. Most people, it's Chicago. I love Chicago. Back in the day when we worked together, we had, you know, a fairly significant presence for our company size in Chicago at 1 East Wacker. It used to be called the Unitrin building. I think it's now the Kemper building. And I was flying in and out. Sometimes I would drive from Toronto, and I started bringing my family, you know, to Chicago because I was spending so much time there. And, you know, you start to see a different side of a city that, you know, sometimes you're in the back of an Uber and you're on your phone doing messaging. You look up and you say, oh, there's a certain landmark or something. And then you get to experience the city for what it is. And for me, it's Chicago, hands down.
Lou Malnati's, hands down. Lou Malnati's pizza. That's the best.
Very good.
Nice. And then personally, what's your favorite place to go personally?
Oh, I think, you know, take a guess at the answer, Damien.
I would say something that was built by Walt Disney, I think, or because you got the 4 kids, or something someplace tropical.
Yeah, I love the heat. I do, but I have a soft spot in my heart for Orlando. You know, Disney is a big part of it. I think you know the answer, but, like, you know, we used to go 2-3 times a year with our kids. You know, enjoy pool time, go to Disney and the parks. I became very fascinated with the Disney company. And when Oracle purchased Eloqua, we had just bought Disney University passes, and I had a chance to go learn from Walt Disney World, which further grew my fascination with that particular business. But I love Orlando. Tropical, I love Hawaii. You know, I went to Croatia last summer, Split, and floated in the Adriatic for 9 days, and it was unbelievable. So any place hot.
Yeah. Well, speaking of hot, it'll be a nice hot summer. So, Jason, thanks so much for your time. Have a great summer. Good luck with all of the kids getting into either work or trouble. Hopefully, a little bit more work than trouble, but we'll speak to you soon. So, Jason, thank you very much.